So, hey everyone, I am here this morning hanging out with Craig Newmark, who is the founder of Craigslist. Craigslist is one of the most important and also profitable tech companies that we have seen. And so I'm super excited to be talking to you, Craig, and hear about your journey and your story.
It's my pleasure. Tell me where to start.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just want to tell folks a little bit about why we invited you to come speak, because today we're talking a lot about business models, we're talking a lot about bootstrapping, and I wanted folks to hear your story because you've had a really interesting one when it comes to that stuff. I've heard and read about you being a business model minimalist, right? And also you've had, some interesting things happen around, like taking on, bootstrapping your company, later on taking on owners and kind of figuring out how you want to own your company. And so I think that it'll be really interesting for folks to hear that story today.
Sure.
Yeah, okay, good. So let's back up and kind of start from the beginning of you coming up with the idea for Craigslist. How did this happen? How did you come up with the idea?
Well, basically, I just saw a lot of people helping me out as I moved to San Francisco. Way back in '93, there was already a virtual community called The Well. People were using Usenet news groups. I got a lot of help, and after about a year and a half or so, I started thinking that I should reciprocate.
What were people helping you with?
Locating neighborhoods, places to live, stores to get stuff at,
Yeah.
just practical stuff like that. And then people also told me how to connect to the community. I was already part of the Well, but people introduced me to this virtual reality research group. It's just a special interest group that would meet at the Exploratorium every month. And there were a lot of like-minded people there. Then I learned about the Anon Salon, which was a party and fundraiser for avant-garde theater. I'm not much for the avant-garde, but it sounded like fun. There was also Joe's Digital Diner, where people would every month show off what they were doing with Apple II multimedia, and I learned an awful lot from that.
Got it. So people were helping you find all these places and these things, and it just occurred to you that you should create a better way to do that?
Well, simpler.
Yeah.
People helped me out. People were helping each other out. I decided that I should do the same.
Got it. Got it. So you wanted to help people out.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. So you come up with, when you thought about helping people out, did you think of it being an online platform or not necessarily?
When I started, it was a very simple mailing list, which first included events that combined technology and arts, like Joe's Digital Diner, like the Anon Salon. People suggested more, and then I did more and just kept churning it out. The first event that happened, the middle of '95, at 250 email addresses, the simple CC list I was using crashed. I had to use a real list server, and it was major domo, but that means giving it a name, and I was going to call it SF Events, since it was mostly events in San Francisco.
Right.
I'm a literal guy. I'm a nerd. There were people around me, though, who told me they already called it Craigslist and that I had created a brand. Then they explained to me what a brand is.
Right, right.
Because I didn't know.
Yeah.
They were right. And so it was named Craigslist then, kept it as a mailing list.
Yeah.
After that, I remembered something lucky. I am a coder. I can write software that can turn emails into web pages. And I had instant web publishing.
Yeah. Great. So wait, how did people get on the newsletter to begin with, on the listserv and the email list?
Initially, it was word of mouth.
Yeah.
Somebody would send some posting to the other person, and the other person would contact me saying, hey, please add me.
Got it. So you got an email list. Initially, you're just CCing everyone. And then when someone wants to join, they can forward it to their friend. Their friend says, yes, I want to join. The friend emails you and says, hey, add me on here. And the next time you send out an email, you add them to the CC list.
You got it.
Amazing. Okay. So like a long way from here, from where you started, to where you are now. But, you know, a lot of times I talk to people about building an app, building a business that happens to have an app, not an app that happens to have a business, right? Building something that really has, you know, really simple functionality for people. It doesn't need all the crazy bells and whistles. How have you dealt with figuring out when to add bells and whistles and when not to? Because I think we all see, you know, even today, Craigslist is a relatively simply structured site. It's not confusing to navigate. It's very clear, right?
I have the advantage of not knowing much about design.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about the fancy stuff. I do know as an engineer about getting stuff done
Yeah.
and also not having crap get in the way.
Yeah.
So focused on just what helped people.
Yeah.
And even though over the last 20 years, the team has just added stuff which really seem to add function and not get in the way. So if you look at a list of items in a particular category and city, you'll see simple text lists. You could also choose photographs or whatever. The deal is keep it simple, fast, effective, and also keep it, well, underneath, you keep it fast by adding function and subsystems that keep everything fast.
Yeah. And you can slowly roll those out and add them as you go, but you can start with something very simple.
Yeah. And our philosophy also is kind of modest. Add those new features out slowly, incrementally, not making a big deal out of them, meaning that a lot of people haven't really noticed that new stuff has been added that they just haven't noticed before.
Right.
I'm guessing that they thought it was already there and nothing had changed. And that's human.
Yeah.
But people think nothing's changed.
So many people, I would imagine, feel pressure to build a really fancy thing, right? I hear a lot of people talk about their business ideas, and there's all sorts of extra bells and whistles that maybe their customer doesn't necessarily need immediately. So how do you kind of push back on that pressure? Is that hard for you to do, to not be pressured by that, or has it just come easy?
Well, in the 1 year that I was CEO, it was very easy for me to resist that pressure. But around the end of that year, people helped me understand that as a manager, I kind of suck.
Okay.
And that if I was a smart guy, I would turn that responsibility over to someone who would be better at it than me. That's Jim Buckmaster. So at that point, I turned over all management decision-making to Jim.
Yeah.
Something I've done a poor job of letting everyone know that since 2000, I've had very little management decision-making. So a lot of the stuff that people think about that I might be involved with, I haven't had it involved with for like 17, 18 years.
Yeah.
I've decided I'm about to get much louder at letting people know how little decision making I've had.
Right.
And so you'll hear that in the near future after I can get it through legal and financial and
Right, the whole process. You know, I had this conversation with a friend the other day, and we were talking about founders who start businesses, and that often it's not the same person who starts the business who's the perfect person to continue growing the business. Things change, particularly as Craigslist grew relatively quickly. Things change in terms of the job and the job requirements and all those things. First, it's just you and a couple people, and then all of a sudden you're managing a team, and the job changes really dramatically. And so, we were talking when we were having this conversation about how, a lot of founders maybe need to be more open to doing exactly what you did, right? Saying, I started this, I got this and kicked this off, but it doesn't need to be me necessarily who continues as CEO. Was that a hard decision for you to make, though? Because for a lot of people, that's hard.
Wasn't hard. It made me cringe a little bit. Giving something up like that is painful.
Yeah.
But I had seen too many cases in the industry where people hung on too long and did a lot of damage.
Yeah.
So I hung along at most 9 months too late. And 9 months, that's pretty good.
Yeah, no, that's very good. You hear all these stories about people's boards really wanting to kick them off. We hear all these, crazy tales, but it maybe looks different if you can make a decision yourself as a CEO to say, I'm really good at starting things, but maybe not the right person to take this to the next 20 levels, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, in retrospect, I'm not as bad a manager as I thought I would.
Got it. Okay.
But to see, the deal is that in recent years, I've switched. Well, I should back up. When I had to decide even to make Craigslist into a real company, I made decisions about monetizing it as little as possible.
Interesting. Tell me more about that.
The idea is that, well, in Sunday school, I learned from Mr. and Mrs. Levin to know when enough is enough.
Mm, okay.
And so I could see that I was going to make enough to live comfortably and help out friends and family.
Yeah.
I could see that the company would be able to pay people pretty well. The,
Yes.
the business model is doing well by doing good.
Yes.
That was the initial commitment from 99. That has proven to work out really well.
Yeah.
Because I saw that in common sense terms, Craigslist is about putting food on the table.
Mm,
It's about helping someone get a table, and
yeah.
it's about helping someone get a roof under which to put the table.
Got it.
And the CEO decision, I had to make sure that Jim maintained that philosophy,
Yes.
and we do maintain that philosophy until this very moment.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to dig into what you just said a little bit around business models. So for folks who don't know, how does Craigslist make money?
Okay. We charge in a number of categories in different cities where we see a need. From the beginning, in several cities, we charged job posters for more effective job ads for much less money than they were charged elsewhere.
Got it. So if you are posting a job, you're hiring, you can make sure that people see it by paying a little bit to Craigslist, and you'll really publicize it.
Yeah.
Okay.
In New York City, apartment brokers have had way too much power in the past and even now about charging people, and sometimes forgetting to tell people that there was a commission.
Right.
Uh, Also, they had to charge lots and lots, well, they had to post lots and lots of ads to keep their stuff up,
Yeah.
which annoyed everyone. Annoyed apartment brokers, annoyed apartment searchers. So I was assigned to do a little research.
Hmm.
Notice again, I wasn't in management. I was just acting as a customer service rep,
Yeah.
doing some research, and I figured out I figured out most of what would help solve the problem, given that a lot of apartment brokers were early in the business and not making enough money to pay their bills.
Hmm.
In fact,
Got it.
not making about a third of the money they needed to pay the bills.
Wow.
So I recommended that we would charge them $10 an ad. Everyone agreed. That's worked out pretty well. We've made that market less predatory.
Mm-hmm.
New apartment brokers can try to make a living.
Yeah.
People looking for apartments, well, we helped cut down on the abuse there.
Right.
Didn't solve the problem, made it less. So that was a pretty good thing.
How far in were you when you started charging this $10 for ads?
What was what?
How far along were you?
Oh,
Was this 2 months in? Was this a year in? When did that happen?
I'm guessing this was about 10, 12 years ago. My memory isn't what it should be.
Right.
And from my point of view, it was, I had a problem, I solved the problem, what's next?
Yes.
And
Yes.
in that process, I forget the part that says, let's memorialize when I do this.
Right. In your brain. Right.
Lawyers would love that. But from the point of view of an engineer trying to get something done,
Right.
that's a superfluous step.
But had Craigslist existed for over a year by the time you started charging people?
That was about, I think, around 7 years, guessing.
Got it. Okay, so you weren't generating any revenue until 7 years in.
Oh, so we started generating revenue immediately in 99 for job postings. We started generating revenue for New York City apartment ads and I'm guessing here, about 2005.
Got it. So pretty much immediately, maybe so you started in 95, is that right?
Yes. Well, it
Okay.
started in 95 as a mailing list,
The mailing
and
list.
it was a mailing list, then a website in 96.
Got
It
it.
became a company in 99.
Got it. So as soon as you became a company, you kind of transitioned it from being a project to a company. And as soon as you made it a company, you had a business model that was in play, and it was the job postings specifically.
Specifically, yes. The trick and the hard part, which you asked about before, in 99, when I was trying to make a decision, uh, bankers and VCs were telling me, hey, I should do the usual Silicon Valley thing,
Mm.
let them throw a lot of money, maybe billions of dollars at me. But I do remember Mr. and Mrs. Levin telling me no one enough is enough.
Yes.
And I should add another big lesson, which applies to customer service. They said, treat people like you want to be treated.
Mm.
And that means do the best customer service you can, which is challenging on a site that's almost all free.
Right. Because you can't then afford to do the service. Is that why?
Yeah. Well, there are some people who want to more strictly enforce our rules in some categories.
Got it.
It could mean hiring 1,000 to 10,000 new people
Right.
at $100,000 a year, including costs.
Which
That
adds
might
up.
be difficult.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Okay, great. So you then, people were saying and suggesting that you should have investors put money in your company. Did you do that?
Well, people were suggesting it. We took none of that money.
Took none of that money. I mean, for a lot of people, that's crazy. Why?
I saw that we would do well enough by our own values.
Yeah.
Remember, for me, I call them nerd values. We get to change the world some. We get to make a difference. And then we all get to help out a bit with our friends and family as living a reasonably comfortable lifestyle.
Yeah.
Like reasonably comfortable my lifestyle means things like you can upgrade your seat now and then when you're flying.
That's
It
right.
doesn't mean private plane.
Right. That's right. That's fair. And that's okay. That is okay. In tech, we've got, all these conversations about where everyone needs to go and what success needs to look like. And a lot of people have that private plane that's the only thing that tech success looks like in their mind, right? And so I love that you're suggesting something otherwise.
Yeah, me, I'm happy if the plane is reasonably on time and has reasonably fast Wi-Fi.
Right. That's all we need here. Got it. Okay, great. So how many people, how many people work at Craigslist now?
There's about 40 of us. Things changed,
Yeah.
and I bet we could use a handful of more good tech people.
Got it. I love it. So you've got about 40 people, and people are comfortable, your employees are comfortable, and you've built this, I call it, a sustainable growth business. We often talk about high growth tech companies. They take in lots of capital and they just, try to shoot up as fast as they can. We very seldom talk about the two other types of companies, so high growth, but there's also, lifestyle businesses that are meant to help us get to a certain level of income as the founder, as the founding team, and no more, right? You just want to be comfortable. And there's also sort of sustainable growth businesses that are just kind of continuing to grow in a way that's actually sustainable, not, dumping a ton of capital that you don't necessarily need yet.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I have been blessed by having very few resources to start. And that's true from my childhood on, because I guess, I grew up hovering not far above poverty.
Yeah.
I only realized that about 5 years ago when I realized that the place across from my house was a junkyard.
Yeah.
And the junkyard that I played in was owned by family friends up the street.
Yeah.
And I loved that junkyard because I could often find old comic books and I could tear apart radios for magnets. And if you're an 8-year-old nerd, magnets are fun.
Yes, that's right. And so you almost have done something similar with Craigslist, right? You took these, very simple things, an email list, some CCs, right? And we're able to just create this company When you first started, was it a side project for you?
Oh, when I first started, I was on my departure from Charles Schwab and Company.
Got it. Okay.
And after that, I kind of went to work for a early web design firm,
Got
which
it.
didn't work out that well. But then an agency recruited me to work at Bank of America,
Yeah.
where I helped develop their second website and helped develop home banking.
Wow. So
And
you were working a 9 to 5 job as you were kind of coming up with some of these ideas.
yeah, fortunately, the timing worked out since I did Craigslist with no Charles Schwab resources at all.
Right. Right. That's right.
That's a lesson we needed to tell those guys on HBO Silicon Valley. You got to be careful.
Yeah, right. When you're working a existing job and you have an idea as a side project, you have to be careful not to take resources from your existing job and put them into your side project. Your side project becomes a big company that could be legal trouble. Is that what you're saying?
It would be well too exciting. Many
Right.
lawyers would be involved.
Right. Got it. Very clear. Very clear. Okay. So what advice do you have for entrepreneurs who are starting a company? They, very similar to you, want to get to a place where they can upgrade their seat now and then, but are not trying to, be too greedy with it. They're not trying to, build they understand that the Silicon Valley way is not the only way, right? What advice do you have for them getting started?
Start with some modesty and humility.
Yeah.
Listen to people, find out what they think they want and need, and do something simple and fast to address those simple needs, and then grow doing that. You might start in one geography and grow beyond that. And then, like Mr. and Mrs. Levin would say, treat people like you want to be treated as the guiding principle behind customer service.
Yeah.
And know when enough is enough. If you
Yeah.
are successful, then kind of know when to, well, you don't want to overcharge your users. You want to have them let something. Like our philosophy is that Craigslist is a place where people can run things so they can put food on the table.
Right.
So remember that everyone else has these same needs. And then beyond that, if you manage to do well, like Jack Lemmon says, send the elevator back down. Do what you can to help other people. Make that happen in business, but also remember that philanthropically, you want to give people a break. For example, that's the motivation for by this Craig Newmark philanthropies thing.
Yeah.
And one initiative, one priority is to help out veterans and their families.
Yeah.
Because they've already paid for our help. Sometimes sacrificed a lot, sometimes sacrificing their lives. And remember, their families give up a lot. That's a big deal.
What you're telling us is you've been able to, create this life for yourself where you can now do a lot of philanthropic work, the stuff that's really important to you. And that's what you spend most of your time on now, no? Is that right?
Yeah. I still do some customer service work for the company.
Really?
Yeah. And in a sense, I'm a real part of the company, but just by virtue of this little bit of customer service, and it's only a little, I can help operate in good conscience, figuring that most of my time is philanthropy, but in the same spirit of Craigslist.
Awesome. So this is perfect. Thank you so much for sharing your story, for really kind of giving us a sense of what business model, what bootstrapping looked like for Craigslist, what the beginning version of Craigslist looked like. I think this is going to really help a lot of folks figure out kind of how to get started, how to take the next steps with some confidence. So I want to thank you so much for hanging out with us, and we will talk really soon. If anybody has questions too, they can comment below, and we will get some of those answered.
Hey, it's my pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Take care.